Hello, Hub City kids. How are you doing today? I forgot to mention last week, did you enjoy a different background? I keep trying to switch things up for you so you don't get bored of whatever background there is. I'm in the nursery today, which is pretty fun. I like the polka dots, and most of you haven't seen the polka dots in a year, so there you go. Last week, do you remember what we talked about? Hopefully you do. We talked about Moses and who is the hero of really everything, but specifically of Moses' story. Is it Moses? It's kind of a trick question. It is not, it's God. God is the hero of Moses' story and our stories. So that's pretty exciting. And we'll get to hear a lot more about how God is the hero of Moses' story today. So if you want, you can pause the video and recap what happened before, or, ready, you can, as a family, hopefully you read through chapters 3 and 4, but I'd love it if you reread chapter 3 today, because that's what we're going to be talking about. And pause the video and tell each other what you remember from chapter 3. Ready? Okay. What was Moses like? Have you ever really thought about that? In this chapter, we know it's the story about the burning bush. And first of all, that would be pretty crazy. And just to walk up and see this bush burning. And what was Moses' reaction to that? What do we learn about who Moses is in this passage? Was he super excited to be called by God to do this crazy important thing? No, he wasn't. He walked up to a bush that was on fire without being burned that starts talking to him. And when it asked him to do something, what did Moses say? He made a bunch of excuses. He said, I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't do this. And he's telling this to the creator of the universe, not to mention to the person responsible for making this bush burn without burning, and is talking to him. This is really hard for me to imagine. I would like to think that if I walked up in the same situation and I see this bush that's on fire without burning, and it starts talking to me, I would like to think that I would fall on my face and say, of course, God, whatever you say, I will do. But the reality is, I know that that's probably not true, because even though I've never seen a bush that's on fire without being burned, God asks me to do things all of the time. And I often have excuses for why I would not be the right person to do it, and for why I can't. And that kind of hurts my heart to say. Have you ever had that experience? I know, being a mom with my kids, that happens all of the time. When your mom says, go pick up your room, and you say, I can't, I'm too tired, or my legs hurt, or my hands feel like Jell-O. Is it really true that you can't pick up your room? No, and I think you all know that. But you don't want to pick up your room, so you come up with all sorts of excuses. Maybe it's too overwhelming because you made such a big mess. Maybe it's not about that you don't want to, it's just about you're in the middle of doing something else that you really like, and it's hard to think about stopping and doing something else. And I get it. And Moses had the same reaction to God. But here's something that I really like about this passage. What is God's response to Moses? He listens to him. He listens to all of his excuses, and he answers all of them really reasonably. When Moses says, I don't know what to say, what does God say? He doesn't just say, go and figure something out. He says, tell them who I am, and I will provide you with the words to say. When Moses says, I can't hardly even speak, I'm not good at it, and we don't know why Moses says that. We don't know if he's really shy. We don't know if he had a hard time speaking. Some people even think that maybe he was away from Egypt for so long he didn't remember the language. We don't know why. But what is God's response? He says, it's fine. I'll give you your brother, and your brother can be your mouthpiece. And by the way, who made your mouth? I did. So don't worry about if your mouth doesn't work correctly, because I can fix that. So what does God's reaction to Moses teach us about Moses? And more importantly, what does God's reaction to Moses teach us about God? Because I love this passage so much. It tells us that God hears us. He listens to us. He's super patient, and he's a safe place for us to tell all of our feelings to. If we're scared or we're worried or we think we're failing at something or we have doubts, we can bring all of those things to God, and he will not only listen to us, but he'll answer us, and he'll tell us that we are important to him and that he can solve all of those problems and that we don't have to fix them all on our own. He loves us so much that he takes the time to listen. He tells Moses over and over again in this passage, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. What does this tell us about God? In this, he's telling Moses about his history. He is the same God for Moses as he was for Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and before that. He's the same God that took care of all of those people and all of his descendants that he promised Abraham, that he's been there, and that he keeps his promises all of the time. He made those promises to Abraham, and he's going to keep them and be with them. He hasn't changed, and that tells me he cares. People who don't care about you don't make promises to you, and they definitely don't keep those promises. We talked a little bit last week about the type of person Moses was. Was he the hero type? Was he this great, fantastic person that was perfect in every way? No. Did he have strong armies and servants and castles and lots of land? No, he was a shepherd, which there's a lot of shepherds in the Bible, aren't there? He was a shepherd who got saved by a bunch of women over and over and over again. Then he killed someone and got scared of the consequences and ran away and hid in the desert for 40 years. Apparently, he can't speak in public, and he doesn't have a lot of confidence in himself. Or God, really. So how in the world is Moses going to save an entire nation of people from one of the most powerful kingdoms in the world? Well, here's a hint. He's not going to. God is. Remember, Moses is not the hero of this story, but God is. God uses even the weakest, least impressive people to do his work for him. Why is this good news? I don't know about you, but I'm a pretty weak, unimpressive person myself. I get scared. I have doubts. I do not have an army at my disposal. I do not have servants. I do not have a lot of money or power or influence, but God still can use me. He is the hero of my story. If you believe that Jesus is king, then you have a job in God's story. Your job is to share God's good news, to love your neighbors and to show them that the creator of the world loves them. And you know what? Sometimes that's really hard. It can be embarrassing, or we are worried that we won't have the right words, or we don't know what to say. But this story shows us that we don't have to. All we have to do is tell God we can't. and he gives us all we need so that we can. He loves you enough to listen to all of your fears and all your worries and all of your doubts and your uncertainties. And he loves you enough to give you all the tools that you need to do what he asks you to do. Knowing that feels a little bit easier to do those things, doesn't it? When the whole creator of the universe is helping you. And that you don't even have to worry about it because you're not the hero. That's kind of a freeing thing to think about. You're not the hero of your story. God is. Your story is important, and you are important because God loves you and he wants to be your hero. So today, for our craft, don't laugh at my craft, I made this flaming bush. Here's my bush that is not burning, but it's covered in flame. I am 100% certain that you could make some pretty cool and much cooler looking fire than I did. But this is a reminder that God is who he is, just like he says in the passage. He is before me, he is after me, that he keeps all of my promises, and that he gives me whatever I need because he loves me and he wants to hear what I have to say, and he is the hero of my story. So have a great week, Hub City kids. I love you and I miss you, and I will see you next week.